So after Da'wat al-Ashira, which is when the Prophet really went public with his message, the first surah that was revealed and presented to the people was actually Tabbat Yada Abi Lahabin wa Tab, which is the ultimate example of poetic justice. It's confrontational. It's not nice, by the way. You know, Abu Lahab and calling him and his wife certain names which they deserved for oppressing the Prophet and for being, you know, this frivolous people that they were. So that's the first point, which is that, like brother was mentioning, Meccan teachings were provocative. They came to smash the idols both intellectually and physically. But also with regards to perennialism, there's an aspect of perennialism which is correct.
First of all, what is perennialism, by the way?
So,
can you define it for us?
I guess colloquially you can say that it's the idea that every religion in some way is correct, that they all have some shared, you know, deep down that they're all the same and that they're all teach you to be good. It's all about the golden rule. And that really the areas of difference are just an illusion, and they're peripheral and they're unimportant. First of all, there's an aspect of it that's correct, which is the following. We're all born on the fitrah. We're all Muslim by nature. That the nature of the human being is submission to the will of God. That is true. And so therefore you're going to find aspects of each religion that contain the fitrah, and you're going to find as well, because we believe prophets were sent to every nation, you're going to find aspects of wahi in every, you know, more or less every world religion, except for those that were completely created by charlatans. Now, the problem with perennialism is that it basically ignores the idea or the reality of the finality of Muhammadan Islam, if I can say that. That we believe as Muslims that the Islam of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the halals and the harams of the messenger are final until the Yawm al-Qiyamah. And this is a very important part of our religion. We're told not to add things to the religion. We're told not to take away things from the religion. We're told that He is the criteria, and that the Quran is the Furqan, the criterion for good and evil. And so ultimately, the Quran is not a text that is wishy-washy, you know, just golden rule and that's it. The Quran has challenges. The Quran has orders. The Quran, it has an authoritative truth claim. You know, it has a claim of authority. It's not just something that poetic that can be easily meshed with everything. It has its own character. And simply, if you're a perennialist, like Shuan and some of these other thinkers, you're going to be sidelining the finality of the prophetic message. You're going to be, you know, putting those things on the side and just saying that, well, Islam ultimately is just belief in God, worshiping God, and all religions have that essentially.
I mean, one of the keys is, as you said earlier on, that when we do this kind of whitewashing, it doesn't actually earn us the respect that we're so craving. We don't end up getting it anyhow. People will usually see through that, or they'll think that you've overgeneralized, or you're just kind of whitewashed, or you know, just shooed the issue away. So to just say that, you know, jihad means baking cookies for your neighbors and helping the ladies cross the street, it sounds beautiful.
I thought it did mean baking cookies for your neighbors. Okay.
So I mean, you know,
I'm on board with that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds beautiful, but as you said earlier on, when you share the truth with people in a balanced way, in an intelligent way, they actually end up respecting you even more. So it's not that difficult to tell them that, look, yes, Islam is a peaceful religion. By default, it's a peaceful religion, but it's not pacifist, you know. And I use a school analogy. I say Islam basically says don't throw the first punch, you know what I mean? But there's times when it's appropriate to fight, and you're even prescribed to fight. And most people find that very reasonable. It's not like the average person is such a committed pacifist that this would be unacceptable to them anyhow. This makes most sense. This makes sense to most people. So yeah, we just have to dig. I mean, until we have strong leaders and strong institutions, unfortunately, we're just going to have to kind of freelance it until then and dig down really deep and try to find that courage within us. I think studying the lives of not only the prophets, but studying the lives of the Sahaba, I think will really help us in developing that courage. In Toronto, mashallah, there's lots of places you can go to study. There's places where you can learn the Arabic language. There's places you can study tafsir. There's places you can study mantiq and fiqh and usul fiqh. But where do you go to learn courage? You know, where do you learn where do you go to learn bravery and to develop a spine?
You actually mentioned the J word, which honestly, what's going on through my head is, do I edit it out or do I give it in there? I'm just joking. No, but you know what? Part of the problem, my dear brother, is that you actually hit the nail on the head. People don't know how to address the J word because we're not taught.
What's the J word? Sorry.
The J word is jalebi. Jalebi is an Indian Pakistani.
What does that mean?
Jihad.
Oh, I see.
This brother's Orthodox, mashallah. So you know what? For those listening out there who are like calling the authorities at the moment, no, I'm just joking. But though
we meant cookies.
Yeah, we meant cookies. you know what? That if young people are not learning these things from their own local imams and their own tradition and who have access to shuyukh who are shuyukh and scholars who are approachable, they're gonna go to the internet and actually get this information from the wrong places.
Exactly.
So this is, and I don't want to toe the line of the government at all, and say this should be the new counter-extremism strategy and counter-radicalization strategy, because we all know that this is a very highly politicized strategy to somewhat control Muslims. But it's actually our own Orthodox tradition that refutes the takfiri or khariji groups out there. And this is really important. So I think part of the issue, oh my God, how do I address the J word? I'll just have to deny it altogether. But as you said, self-defense, right? And you ask any American, Canadian, this is the way we can explain it, and things like that. So there's many ways that you can explain it. It just comes down to knowledge. But I want to, just before I get to Brother Bilal here, how could a young Muslim prepare themselves for debate skills, for critical thinking skills? I mean, I don't know if you can talk about a little bit about Muslim Debate Initiative or Street Dawah at this point.
Well, I say honestly that I'm still in the process of trying to develop those skills for myself. So I'm very much in that process myself. And yeah, unfortunately, we don't as of yet have institutions, that train people in Islamic apologetics and polemics and things like this. So, I mean, but at the same time, I want to give some kind of advice to people out there. So really, I would just say kind of, watch as many debates as you can. Go on YouTube, watch as many debates as you can. Follow. There's a great brother, Mansoor Ahmed. He's a friend of mine at Speakers Corner. I mean, he's pretty orthodox and he does a really great job of refuting just about anybody and everybody. Whether it's Christian, whether it's Christian missionaries, atheists, deists, he's talked to Quran only types as well too. So Muhammad Ajab and Mansoor Ahmed and these people are now inspiring a lot of Muslim youth actually around the world. Since Speakers Corner, Hyde Park in London, England went global on YouTube, it's really making a lot of waves.
May Allah bless those brothers. Do you have a debate, a favorite that one of yours from the Muslim Debate Initiative that you can throw out there? Someone can maybe start with.
Honestly, I don't look up to myself. But what I would say is I would plug Brother Abdullah Andalusi from MDI. If you want to see how he deals with whether it's feminism, liberalism, extreme secularism, there's a lot to learn from Brother Abdullah Andalusi. He's doing a great job.
Fantastic.
So,
I'll just really quickly, I'll add to that.
Yeah.
Watch Brother Sadat's Anwar's debates with Christians. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Okay, Brother Bilal, please. You want to say something?
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So yeah, no, Asadullah Ali Al-Andalusi also. He does a lot on atheism.
Yaqeen Institute?
Yeah, Yaqeen, I believe he works for them. Yeah, he does a lot on atheism.
He does the Jihad series as
yes,
well.
He does the Jihad series. Again, there's the J word again.
This is Asadullah Andalusi.
Oh yes,
yeah.
He's excellent. MashaAllah, he's may Allah bless the brother. Yeah,
he's got a very good akhlaq as well. He does it very professionally, very respectfully, he's very humble. One point that I just wanted to make was that this kind of Islamist peace and just tolerate us and let's just vote for leftist parties because we just want to be included and tolerated, that approach clearly hasn't been working. We've been doing this now for a few decades, and I think since 2011 or so we've seen Islamophobia skyrocket. We've seen anti-Islam incidents skyrocket. You've seen these things, the internet's become the comment sections, YouTube, every news organization, every newspaper, comments are very hostile towards us. So things aren't getting better with this strategy. So even if the heart is in the right place for people who are employing this strategy, it's not working. It's not working. Simple. So I think even just from a pragmatic perspective, we can talk about what's Islamic and what's not Islamic, but just from simply a pragmatic perspective, this method is not working. I think a lot of people use this method mainly because it's just an easy kind of cop-out. If you just want a one-sentence way to, somebody at work or somebody at school or somebody on the street is confronting you, you'll just say, no, Islam is peace. Oh, jihad doesn't mean that. It's a good way to just end the conversation. So it's convenient for people. You also don't have to know much about Islam. You also don't have to assume much of the other person's education and level of or willingness to learn, because it's a simple one-liner. But because the arguments against Islam and the Muslim community are becoming more sophisticated, our counter-arguments have to become more sophisticated.
JazakumAllahu Khair, beautifully put.
I think the point I would add to that would just be, and JazakumAllahu Khair to both the brothers for, I have very little to add to something like this, but what I would say is that I think we look at it too much from the perspective of defending Islam, when really, there is a discussion going on right now amongst young people, amongst old people, about how the world should be organized, about how society should be run, about how people should deal with women, how they should deal with abuse, how they should deal with unjust corporate practices. And Islam has so much, it has the truth to offer to these conversations. And so when our discussion about Islam becomes what will be the most appeasing to a capitalist, what are we adding to the conversation?
Right.
When it becomes what is going to be the most acceptable to a feminist, what do we have to give them to think about? Right? Really, our focus should be what is our contribution as Muslims to the arena in which we're operating. Think of it this way. And I'm not endorsing, the UFC Khabib fight. There's a bunch of issues there, both with Khabib personally and with the industry as well. But imagine if Khabib had just been like any other fighter. Imagine he drank, imagine he womanized. Why would anybody respect him? Why would the fight even be that significant? Why would so many young people take so much inspiration in him? It's him taking a stand on things that makes him interesting in that industry. Islam, gives us the ability to do that in every single aspect of life. So let's add to the conversation. Let's not take away from the deen so we can just conform to whatever is being said already.
That's a fantastic point, and something that's related to that is not every debate has to be theological in nature. And what I mean by that is it's great to debate Islam versus other ideas or other religions, but at the same time, we have a very socially relevant religion, and like you said, we have a lot to add, whether it's to lucrative business practices, or whether it's family relations, or how we should organize ourselves ethically. We have a lot to add to those conversations, and I think that we need to try our best to enter those to have those conversations. We need to talk about environmentalism, for example. We need to speak to indigenous people and about indigenous rights, for example. Not to get too social justice activisty about it, but I'm just saying that we have.
I'm going to label you an SJW now.
Well, my whole point though is that we're not just people that are just sitting on our behinds defending the religion we're born into necessarily, and its theological doctrines, but we are a religion of action. We're a religion of responsibility, and I think if you could sum up the Meccan period in one word, it would be accountability. Because the Messenger ﷺ came at a time when the people were very frivolous, and he came with, Yawm al-Qiyamah is coming. They never believed in physical resurrection. They didn't. They had no concept of that in Mecca. So he came with, look, these women you buried alive, they will be asking you what their sin was. These orphans, these widows, all these things, you have to be accountable to it. And so there is an ethos of responsibility in that first generation, and I think that's what gave birth to the even the material success of the Islamic civilization in the succeeding centuries. So yeah, we should talk theology as much as we can, but we should also engage every other conversation, because Islam has practical solutions.
Jazakallah Khair. Before I end this, you guys can get in touch with Mr. Bilal Muhammad on his Facebook page. It's Mr. Bilal Muhammad. Anas through Aware Muslim Canada, and Brother Sadat through the Muslim Debate Initiative and Street Dawah Toronto, which is in Dundas every Sunday. I want to end with actually a reminder from the Quran. And this was actually explained beautifully to me here by a sheikh in Canada, which I asked him, how do you balance Islam in your life? And I was really, in light of seeking knowledge and whatnot. And he said, Iqra kum kum. I don't know if you guys have heard this before, Iqra kum kum, and I said, what is that? And he said it's an acronym, which is discussing the very first surahs that were revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Iqra, the first part of it, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Read the Quran, recite the Quran, have a relationship with the Quran, have a relationship with knowledge. This is the first thing. For every single Muslim, I believe that they should be involved with knowledge to some degree, whether it's attending a weekly halaqah or even some YouTube videos. Secondly, the second qum, which means stand, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, qum al-layla illa qalila. So stand for the prayer, stand for worship. And what we can learn from this is the spiritual component of Islam, the fara'id, guarding our salat. It's just a reminder to myself and every single one of us that the worship, our ibadat, is the rights upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is almost like the fuel for everything else in our life. We're dead without it. And the last qum is Ya ayyuhal mudaththir qum fa'andir, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually, which is the bulk of this discussion, standing up to convey the message, standing up to give da'wah, standing up to warn the people. Sometimes it's not going to be always comfortable, and sometimes it's going to be difficult, but it is in and itself a spiritual journey, and it was the task of all of the prophets. So I do want to end it with there. I want to say JazakumAllahu Khair to each and every one of you. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfirullah.